Okay, in this video, we are going to go on a spiritual quest. We are going to go on a journey. We're going to seek enlightenment. And here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to do two things, right? Number one, we're going to try and find a way to explicitly break all of God's 10 commandments, but also do so whilst feeling a smug sense of moral superiority. And I have found the perfect vehicle for just such a journey, and that is progressivism / wokeness / leftism / Satanism? Is it Satanism? Pretty darn close, actually. Right, let's take a look. I am Jamie Bambrick, Editor-in-Chief for Clear Truth Media, and in this video we're looking at how wokeness violates each of the 10 commandments. Number one, you shall have no other gods before me. Classic commandment, top tier. Right, what about this though? What about if rather than having an all-powerful, all-good, all-knowing God, you had an all-powerful, all-knowing, all-good state? Very benevolent state. States have never done anything bad in their entire history. Governments haven't killed millions of people or killed more than anybody else. Nope, that's never happened. And of course, the one thing that we all want our gods to do, we're also going to trust our state to do, which is really just to love us, right? So our states offer us all the things that we want and need. You know, more free porn, more smoking weed, more free stuff. We'll do that for you. Do you want to have a horrible parade with people dressed as furries? Of course you do. You can have that. Absolutely. Naked bike rides, that's yours. Freedom, liberty, no, we don't do that. You go to jail for that kind of stuff. Go to prison if you disagree with us. But ultimately, those little things, we love you enough to have that. Well, if that's the position you put the state in, that is the position of a god. Also, Marxism, very explicitly atheistic. There must be nothing above the state. There is no authority above the state. And of course, many people talk about secular states. The reality is there is no such thing as a secular state. Every state has a god, and in a secular system, the state often becomes God. So you shall have no other gods before me, perfectly violated by leftism. Number two, you shall not make any graven images. There are a bunch of different ways we could go here as to how we could violate this. We could look at all of the ugly statues we currently have. You know, Medusa on the top of courthouses, the IUD statue recently at the DNC, all the George Floyd murals, the patron saint of irrational public hysteria, all of the pride flags everywhere, all of that symbolism ultimately matters. But what about this little god and this little graven image that we like to make in our age? If the state is not the top god, and it probably is, but if it isn't, then the top god of our age is self. We are self-determining, we worship ourselves, and you can choose literally everything about yourself right down to your very gender. And I would say that transgender surgery is probably the deepest form of graven image you can make. It is in fact so much worse than carving an image from wood or from stone. You are carving an image of your God, your view of yourself, your gender identity, and carving that into the image of God, the one image that he has given, which is your body. You mutilate yourself. That is so much more precious than any wood or stone, and that is making graven images. That's number two. Number three, what about taking the Lord's name in vain? When people think about this, they normally think about some form of swearing, using the names of God, which, you know, is true. Don't do that, okay? It's not nice. But let me ask you another question. If you do a whole bunch of things that God hates, and you do so in the name of God or in the name of an idea that belongs to God, is it possible that you're doing this? Like if, say, as a denomination, you celebrate pride, you give blessings on same-sex marriages, you have transgender priests, the Anglican Church, good job there. Or what about if you take words like justice and peace, which are biblical concepts, but you warp the meaning of those to mean just having sex with anybody you like and race riots? That seems like that would fit that bill. Or what about if you're the Pope and you say that communists, who, by the way, have killed millions and millions of people, we'll get to that shortly, but you call those people closet Christians. Once again, not looking at anybody in particular, but Pope Francis is who I'm looking at in particular. Is any of that stuff, is that taking the Lord's name in vain, or is that just some sort of creative Bible interpretation in the same way that my son bashing his fists on the piano is a creative interpretation of Beethoven? Okay, number four, what about remember the Sabbath to keep it holy? Obviously, there are some people around who still believe that Sunday is the Lord's Day and should be in some way special. I think there's 6 of us currently left in the world. which, let's be honest, is our bad as the church. So obviously the world isn't doing that. But have you noticed that actually we have an extraordinary number of holy days in our society? We have Pride Month, Transgender Awareness Day, all the people who died as a result of white colonialism or something, celebrations for George Floyd's auntie's dog's birthday, that kind of thing. Pretty much every day there's some sort of left-wing celebration, but you get in trouble if you say Merry Christmas. I think that pretty much constitutes a lovely violation of that commandment. Okay, number 5, honour thy father and mother. I don't know why I said thy for that one, other than it just feels natural.
Oh, you think you're fancy?
Anyway, this is of course something that we do in our progressive world. We honour our fathers and mothers. We honour them in many ways. For instance, cutting them off, removing them from our lives entirely because they disagreed with our gender identity. When you put on a dress and decided you want to cut off your organs, they said maybe wait a week or two. Very unfair of them, but good way to honour them is of course to call them bigots and cut them out of your life, absolutely. We also have feminism, which seeks to crush patriarchy. Patriarchy literally means the rule of fathers. Wants to destroy that, so that could be a violation of that. Also, doesn't have the highest respect for motherhood in the world, doesn't honour that as the most valuable thing. No, much more important to sit in the cubicle and make widgets for your boss. That is much more important. And of course, your forefathers, we don't really speak of them highly. They weren't racist colonial bigots or anything like that either. Okay, number 6, you shall not murder. Unless, of course, it is convenient, in which case, have at it. One of the things we do need to realise, and a lot of people don't want to think about, is the fact that abortion is the number 1 political issue for vast swathes of women. And to be honest, it's not even close. Abortion has become the central religious right, the sacrament of leftism. It is, in fact, a sacrament of Satan, as Seth Gruber so eloquently pointed out. It is done with the same words as communion. Jesus, as he is about to lay down his life, says, "This is my body," as he is about to die for us. Women say the exact same words as they are about to kill an unborn child. It is my body. Not only that, but communism has killed 100 million people in 100 years, literally the most murderous ideology over a unit of time, perhaps in human history. And of course, a lot of people say, real communism has never been tried. Can I make a slight suggestion in this video? If you're trying to produce something and 100 million people have died in the process of you trying to produce it, stop freaking trying to produce it. My days. Number 7, you shall not commit adultery. Okay, the destruction of marriage is pretty much baked into progressivism in every way possible. It starts with things like no-fault divorce. Marriage isn't lifelong, it's just a nice little contract. We can get out of this anytime we like for any reason. Moves into things like the cultural rejection of marriage, where marriage is depicted as sexless, a tetchy sort of relationship where everyone really hates each other, but they've just got to stick it out. Who would want that? We don't view it as the fundamental institution of our society anymore. That leads us to redefining it. It can be any 2 people, doesn't have to be a man and a woman. If 2, why just 2? Why not 3? Why not 4? Why not a horse? Why not a cat? Why not the air? A sense of wonder. Why not marry that? You can marry anything, of course. And of course, we have all the other general debauchery that exists out there in our world, all the pornographic material, all the materials being pushed into our elementary schools that it would be illegal for you to read in public, and people have been arrested for doing so, but let's make sure they are available for children to read, because that's totally normal. And yes, the state will, of course, talk to your kids about sex. You don't have any choice in that, because they're a bunch of freaks, let's be honest. Number 8, you shall not steal. Do you know, if me and 10 of my friends gang up and we get guys with guns to go into some of our neighbours' homes and we demand some of their stuff because they have nice stuff and we would quite like it, do you know what God would call that? God would call that theft, right? What about if we gang up and we vote to send men in and take their stuff? Do you know what God would call that? Well, we would call it democracy. God would still call it theft, actually. And on that topic, by the way, biblical taxation was two things. Number one, it was low. In the Bible, 10% taxation was described as oppression. It is viewed as a wicked leader who would take too much. The current tax burden in most Western countries is about 40%, and that's not including inflation, which is the worst tax imaginable. Not only that, biblical tax was flat. It was the same percentage from everybody. There was no wealth redistribution for its own sake going on. Number 9, you shall not bear false witness. Now, we could go a whole bunch of different directions with this. Progressive media just openly lying to maintain this nonsense. Phrases like love is love being used to describe things that are anything but love. Or how about this one? I'm a man born in a woman's body, or a woman born in a man's body. There's, of course, no evidence that that is true. If merely thinking you are something makes you that thing, then I am, of course, a billionaire genius lion. I'd like to be a lion. That'd be fun, okay? Roaming the savannah rather than sitting here in Northern Ireland in my garage recording videos. I could be hunting down zebra. Rah.
What are you talking about?
And all of that stuff, all of that self-identity stuff, it is false witness. It is not true. Personal pronouns, all of that stuff, demanding other people do it, is demanding that they lie to you. And finally, you shall not covet. Let's ask a question here. What is equity? Right? Is it the idea that all people are endowed with inalienable rights, that they have, been made in the image of God, that they are loved by God and should not be privileged in a legal way just because of some social status or something like that? Is it that? Or is it the idea that if anybody has something that someone else doesn't have, whether that's more money, whether they're better looking, more talented, harder working, better health, right? Because they didn't eat all the donuts. You ate all the donuts, and that's unfair because you should be able to eat the donuts and your body should respond equitably, keeping you in perfect shape. Is that what equity is? That is wrong and that should be taken away from them? Yeah, it's the second one. As such, equity is the very definition of covetousness. No one can have anything that I don't have. Every DEI department is a department of covetousness. Every person blaming inequality for their issues, not because they actually deserved something or someone did something wrong to get ahead, but just because they got ahead. Well, that is covetousness. And covetousness has unfortunately become the new American dream, and that is a nightmare. So there you go. That's 10 ways to break God's law, and it can all be done very easily, and you can feel very smug and self-secure about doing so if you do so under the guise of leftism. If you like that video, I covet your likes and your subscribes. If you would like to willingly offer those, then please do. To the gods of YouTube. I don't know where I'm going with this. Hit the like and subscribe button in a normal fashion. We don't smash it here. Do all of the things on the platforms that will help the video get out there. Check out wearecontramundum.com, cleartruthmedia.com, and if you're on YouTube, next video.